Hello everybody, welcome to Two-Dimensional Design. This is the first tutorial in the series of tutorials about the visuals that you're going to be responsible for in the class. So let's get started. I think you'll enjoy these. First of all, we have a couple handouts we need to talk about. You can find the handouts in the course information page of Canvas, and I have them set up in a PDF so you can actually print them out if you wanted to. The first handout I want to talk to you about is one called the Bauhaus. Now, the Bauhaus was the first school of industrial design, and it lasted from 1919 to 1933 before it moved to the United States. Started by a gentleman named Walter Gropius. It's so important because we teach the elements and principles of art, very much a foundation course. And they arrive out of the teachings of the Bauhaus. So it makes it very important that we integrate that into what we talk about in the class. Also, here are a list of some of the people, just some of the people that taught at the Bauhaus, major players in the modernist movements of the 20th century. And so we're going to focus on the concepts of form follows function, planned obsolescence, integrity of materials, international style of architecture, which is known as the skyscraper, and the elements and principles of design. That is kind of morphed into the elements and principles of art. And it gives us a really sound foundation for teaching the fundamentals of art. So we end up with elements, principles, and techniques. Now, techniques come and go. You can use whatever technique you want or need for whatever you're making. I'm going to assign techniques for projects for you. Now, we're going to talk in depth about the elements and principles, and we're just going to take a couple of those elements today and talk to you about them, kind of lead you to the path for the second tutorial. We'll talk about what you're going to do in your sketchbook for your first sketchbook drawing, and also lead into what you're going to do for your first exercise, okay? So let's get started and talk about this in terms of line. These elements, these are the three elements we're going to talk about today: shape and form. Watch how these relate to each other. Now, when we talk about line, if you think primitively, humans are mark makers, and so we're going to make marks, whether it's intentionally or accidentally. And so humans make marks, and a mark is considered a line, but it is not an organized line. As a matter of fact, you can make a mark without any thought at all. So if you start thinking about what you're doing, start organizing that mark, you end up with a dot as an organized line. Now, if you have two dots and you connect those two dots together, you can see that you create a line. Now, so the definition of a line is basically a movement between two dots, or the moving path of a dot is also another definition. You can use either one, but you get the concept. Now, later on, we're going to have a line variation project, and we're going to get into line a lot deeper than we're talking about it right now. This is just fundamental stuff for you. Shape is the next one. Now, if we take those lines and we connect them together, we will have a shape. A shape is characterized by two dimensions: height and width. Now, a lot like a picture plane. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So if I was to take some lines and do this and not connect them, that would not be a shape. That would be a series of lines. So these are clear definitions. Now, when we talk about form, it's a little bit different. We could take a shape and start with a shape, but if I add another shape, see that shape I added to it, and then I add another shape, and I create the illusion of depth on that two-dimensional plane, then I have created what we call form in the two-dimensional arts. Remember, all we have is height and width, and then the illusion of reaction in that space. So, of course, I could do things like darken the side of it to accentuate that as a three-dimensional object. Okay, so form is very important. Now, these are the three things I want you to remember. line to shape, shape to form. And you won't have a problem making any form you want. Now, this form idea, of course, as we talk about it, really lasts for any form that you want to make. They're all made with two shapes and lines, okay? So now another concept I want you to understand is that of what we call the picture plane. Picture plane, Plane. A picture plane is a surface, basically any surface an artist works on. So if I'm going to do a mural on a building, the side of that building is my picture plane. In our sketchbook, we're going to use thumbnail sketches, which are basically a 2-inch by 2-inch little sketch we make within that 2-inch square. That thumbnail becomes then your picture plane you're working in. So that's an important concept, the picture plane. Now I have another one that is a little bit more involved. I'll make a little bit bigger picture for you here. So if I take my picture plane and I add a cylinder in this, I have a form sitting in an emptiness. There has no location. It's not forward, it's not back. It's just sitting in a location. But I can do a couple things to create a thing known as space. Space, watch this, space take place. If I put a shadow behind that cylinder, all of a sudden it's sticking in the ground and a shadow is cast. If I come along and put a horizon line back there, all of a sudden that cylinder is sitting in what we call space. The difference between here and here, there are 3 levels of space here, the one here, and the one back there. So we've created that. Now this gets a lot more sophisticated as we get through it, but this will break it down in this elementary way for you here. Also, if I want to accentuate that by making maybe a dark side to that cylinder, I've done a really important thing here because I have a shadow and a dark side. My light is striking that area right here. So this is my light source. Where's that light coming from? Boom, right there, right? And then where is it hitting is your highlight. So where your light hits is a highlight, where it's coming from is the light source, and it all affects what you're dealing with here on your form that you have here to create a sense of illusion in space. So these are some pretty important concepts right here. So I think you got it, line to shape, shape to form. When we're talking about height and width, we're talking about shape. We're talking about form. We have height, width, and depth. So we have 3 variations here of this. And so we're working our way, and we're going to work our way through all the principles. We'll be talking about value, of course, and color and texture. Okay, so now to lead up to what we're going to do next, in our next tutorial, we're going to do a thing called positive and negative. I'm purposely using this black marker here because I want to show this high contrast. So if I virtually have the same thing here, the same thing, same drawing, I can think about that drawing as being a positive and a negative. And then give me a second to fill this in. If I draw it too big, it takes too long, of course. Negative and positive and negative. So these 2 things drawn the same way, but actually manipulated with black and white, showing a positive and negative, changes the look of that piece. That's going to become critical on your project that you do. So I'm going to show you some examples of that, but this is just a prelude to what is coming up. Positive and negative. That is your first sketchbook drawing that you're going to have to do. And it's going to be your first exercise that you do. You're going to manipulate that using the principle of repetition and balance and scale. And I'll talk more about that in our next tutorial. Okay, I hope you have that, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.